Welcome to Policy on Demand. I'm Sindhu Blume. It is the week of June 27th, and this is your Monday briefing. I'm going to speak with Kevin Brown in a moment about critical issues facing the IRS and how those issues will impact you. Details about what's happening this week in Washington are included in the description of this episode. Both the Senate and House are on a 2-week Independence Day recess, but the House will continue with committee work this week, followed by a 1-week recess. Both chambers will return the week of July 11th. Now, joining me is Kevin Brown. Kevin, so great to see you.
Thank you, Sindhu. I'm delighted to be here.
So I want to start off by talking about 3 topics we talk about with you pretty regularly, and those are backlog, staffing, and the tax gap. And these 3 issues are interconnected, and they were the subject of Secretary Janet Yellen's testimony before Congress earlier this month. She urged Congress to fund the agency so it could collect unpaid taxes. And I want to find out from you, let's start with backlogs. Where does the IRS stand on backlogs?
Well, there was a very unusual exchange last week. Early in the week, the Commissioner and the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury issued a statement saying that they were on the verge of completing the processing of all what they termed original error-free paper-filed returns. The next day, the taxpayer advocate painted a different picture when she issued a report saying that, in fact, the backlogs are still very large. She said estimated them at 21.7 million returns and pieces of correspondence that need to be handled. And that backlog had actually grown by over 1 million items in just a year's time. So very different pictures. The delays are still very, very big. Ordinarily, paper-filed returns would take 4 to 6 weeks pre-COVID to process on the part of the IRS. Now it's taking somewhere in 6 to 10 months, over 6 months on average, and oftentimes as long as 10 months.
Okay. All right. Well, and staffing is an integral part of that. So where does the agency stand on staffing?
Having a very hard time. The job market is still very tight, as you know, and they had a goal of hiring 5,000 people this year. They are falling well short of that goal, and there are a number of reasons. One is the tight job market we just mentioned. Secondly is, I think if you're a bright high school or college graduate and you're thinking about where do I want to go work, and you see pictures of paper stacked from floor to ceiling in IRS service centers, and you hear about very outdated technology, it's sort of like going into a time machine and going back 20 or 30 years. The IRS's technology is badly in need of updating, and I can't picture that would be very appealing to bright young people.
Right, right. Is there a particular part of the agency that is most affected by staffing?
Well, clearly the delays in the processing. The correspondence units, for instance, when you get a notice from the IRS, virtually the only way to deal with them is to write in to the IRS. And where that would take a little over 2 months for the IRS to respond pre-COVID, it is now taking on the order of 8 months. So it's very backlogged. People then try to call, and that's very difficult. Only 10% of people who tried to call the service during the filing season were actually able to connect. They had 70 million callers and roughly 7 million actually connected, and the average wait time is 29 minutes.
Okay.
And lest you think it's just taxpayers, practitioners experience the same sort of thing. It's very difficult for us as well. And
let's turn to the tax gap. Where does the IRS stand with that?
Well, the tax gap is still estimated to be, somewhere around $600 billion, which is a very, very tall order for the service to address. There have been some information reporting changes they think will help there, but they're mainly pointing towards increased funding. If they can hire more revenue agents and modernize their IT, they think they can do something about that. Of course, as you know, Sindhu, the funding requests are tied up with bigger funding requests across the government right now. So mainly those attempts to address the gap are on hold pending the outcome of that.
Okay. What are you talking with companies about specifically? They're dealing with all of this. They're dealing with the effects of the backlogs and the lack of staffing. So what are some issues that they're specifically dealing with, and what are you advising them?
Well, it's sort of a tale of 2 IRSs. On the audit side and the collection side, things are working better. But if your revenue agents are back in the office now, they're back on site at taxpayer locations. The same for the collection for the revenue officers. So that part is functioning well. It's the service centers. Anything involving the processing of a return, a claim for a refund, anything that's unusual in any way that doesn't done strictly electronically, is in the words of the taxpayer advocate, kryptonite to the IRS.
Okay. Okay. Let's turn to another topic. Apparently, the IRS has relaxed guardrails for economic substance penalty assertion by exam agents. So for companies that are listening to this or watching this, what should they be aware of and what should they do?
Yeah, sure. High-level managerial approval was required to assert a codification of economic substance argument for, I guess, about the last 12 years. And they just relaxed that. But the impact of that guardrail, as you refer to it as, was that they seldom made this argument. And they virtually never made the argument independent of other technical arguments challenging the transaction. Now you no longer need the approval of the Director of Field Operations, which is cumbersome to get in the past. So we expect that the argument will be raised more frequently. So I'd warn companies that this is a little bit more subjective. When you're being attacked on technical grounds, the service is arguing that you're not in compliance with a regulation or a revenue ruling or something along those lines. This has more of the feel of, I can't find a technical ground to attack this on, but I don't like it. So it appears more subjective, and I think taxpayers should just be aware that the argument will be more frequently asserted now.
Okay. So, and I think it's safe to say that the IRS has quite a bit on its plate, but I'm going to ask you, is Pillar 2 on its radar at all?
Again, when you're talking about a revenue agent who's doing examinations of large corporate returns or individual returns, they tend to be heads down. They focus on the law that is in place today. They do not worry about what the law might be a year from now or 2 years from now.
Right.
Chief counsel, however, much different. They have to anticipate, along with Treasury's Office of Tax Policy, guidance that could be coming. How does that affect current regulation projects that might be on the business plan? Should they be altered? Should they be stopped? Thinking that something might change the need for that type of guidance that we've thought about for years. So counsel, yes. Rank and file IRS, no.
Okay. All right. Kevin, thanks as always for your great insight.
Thank you, Sindhu.
And a reminder for our viewers that the latest Week in Review with Andrew Pryor is included in the description of this episode. There will, of course, be another Week in Review this upcoming Friday. Next week is the July 4th Independence holiday, and we will be taking a break for the week and return with regular programming on Monday, July 11th. We appreciate you spending this time with us, and for our viewers in the U.S., have a happy and safe July 4th. Take care.